G'day, fools, and welcome to another Motley Fool Stocks in Focus episode. I'm Motley Fool Australia Chief Investment Officer Scott Phillips, and I'm joined by Motley Fool analyst Andrew Legget. G'day, mate. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, Scott.
Excellent. Good to hear. Mate, you're a regular contributor to our video series. I really appreciate that, as do our viewers, I know. Mate, Stocks in Focus is where we spend a little bit of time going through some of the companies on the ASX that are the most popularly held, the ones most often talked about, the ones that a lot of our viewers are saying, hey, what about company X, Y, or Z? And this time, you've brought us a business that I've got to say, I haven't spent as much time as you have looking at. It's been one of those that's been around and about for quite a few years now. It is, of course, Aristocrat Leisure. Now, largely known as the pokies-maker Aristocrat Leisure, but of course, that's not only what the business does these days. We'll get to the investing merits in a minute, but maybe you could just quickly run us through the Aristocrat Leisure of 2021, I should say, as ever. We're recording this in early November 2021, so if you're watching this much later, things might have changed. But as we sit here now, mate, tell us what the Aristocrat these days looks like.
Yeah, sure. So, as you said, most people would recognize Aristocrat as, the manufacturer of poker machines, and that's a big
Mm-hmm.
deal. Like, they're one of the largest, if not the largest, poker machine maker in the world. I've been to Vegas. I've walked through casinos in Vegas. You will find Aristocrat's logo all over the casino floors
Mm-hmm.
there. It is a really big deal in that market. So they have about, I think, 50,000 machines installed worldwide. If you wanted a number of just how much of these, money sucking machines exist all over the world.
Yeah.
So that's the one part, and most people will be very familiar with that. The second part of it is something that people might not be as aware of, and that's the digital business. And this is made up of a bunch of different mobile, like games to play on your mobile phone, iPads, etc.
Mm-hmm.
They're split over a bunch of categories. So, of course, given its legacy business, you have the social casino games. So you can download an app to play poker machines on your iPad or phone if you feel the desire to do that.
Mm-hmm.
They also have some casual gaming programs. Now, casual games are pretty straightforward, not complicated games. You're not meant to think a lot, but they're really popular all around the world. And
Right.
then you've got the strategic role player games. These are where you become a character or a group of characters, and you need to use strategy to meet a desired goal. So that's the kind of different categories. And
Mm-hmm.
you know what we'll get into later, there's arguably a bit of a COVID impact, but that digital business actually generated around 50% of the company's revenue in the latest half year report. So it's not a small business, and it's, like I said, easy to forget when you've got a big name in this other market, and most people just think, hey, Aristocrat is a poker machine business. It is now a digital video game business as well.
Mm-hmm. And I guess that's important for a whole lot of reasons. I mean, let's be really honest. Back in the good old days, when you literally pulled the handle of the one-armed bandit, they were physical machines with spinning, literal wheels. There have been video games, very specific video games, but video games effectively now for decades, I suppose, and increasing sophistication. They're all touch screens now, all that kind of stuff. There are meaningful changes happening. So it's not a really, really big jump going from the screen of a poker machine to a screen of a phone or an iPad, and if they're on a computer, they probably are. So it's not that much of a jump. That being said, the extension of this is getting quite a decent way away from what was their core business. One thing to say, okay, we do poker machines and we have these social casino games, as you call them. I don't think you can actually bet money with them. I think it's kind of one of those pay-to-play kind of games. Is that right? Or can you actually bet on some of these machines or some of these games in some jurisdictions?
Yeah, so in Australia, especially, but in for most of their social casino games, they are not actual gambling games. You can still spend
Yeah,
money,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's one of the paradoxes of these social casino games, in that they're allowed to
Yeah,
be
that's
legal,
right.
but actual gambling um,
Yeah,
actual gambling apps in some uh, illegal in some markets, because you
yeah.
can still spend money to buy credits to play these poker machines, but
You
it
just can't
just
get the
means you
money
can't
back. That's brilliant.
receive any money if you get lucky to win.
That's a perfect
Um,
poker machine game, isn't it? One where you can only put money in, you can't get money out. No wonder they're doing it. But it also moves across into, as you say, that the other stuff, like some of those strategic role playing games that really are literally nothing to do with the Aristocrat of old. This is the evolution of the business. I suppose I'm left wondering to some degree, maybe the company's been clear, maybe they haven't, mate. I haven't looked in it, so I'm genuine question for you. But that the more they develop that part of the business, the less it actually looks like maybe even needs to be part of the old Aristocrat gaming business. I mean, arguably, I said those social casino games, it takes the same technology or the same brands. There's some value there. I think it's pretty insidious. We'll leave ethics out of it. But moving across to some of that social gaming stuff, that's where it could be a different business. The businesses could be split. That could be the future. Maybe it's not. What do you think in terms of either what Aristocrat have said or what you expect as to how Aristocrat as a business evolves over time?
yeah, so that's been the thing that's really I found interesting, and
Mm,
I guess I might have struggled with over the years with in regards to Aristocrat because I look at its poker machine business and I see a really good business there in its market. Now
mm,
you can, sorry, you can make arguments about the ethics of the markets that it's
mm,
in,
mm,
but
mm,
if you put that aside and just focus on business quality, that's a really good one because they are the leading manufacturer in the world. They've got relationships with all the major customers for poker machines throughout the world. So, but then you go to the digital the digital video game business. Now,
mm,
no doubt, video games is a huge market. Uh, some people may not be aware, but video games is a bigger market than music and movies combined.
mm,
So it's a big deal. And this is probably what attracted Aristocrat to kind of say, hey, we're already dealing with digital video and in digital
yeah,
gambling games.
yeah.
So why don't we try to get a little bit more of that market? And they did so by acquiring game developers that have been making these casual gaming games or strategic role player games. So that's kind of, but it's a very hit driven business, and
Mm, mm,
unless you've got really valuable IP or intellectual property, and it's hard to make games from scratch and make them successful. And it's not impossible. Like at one point, Fortnite didn't exist. Now it's one of the biggest games on the planet.
mm,
So it's possible, but you know, it's a much riskier business. So therefore, I've always kind of seen Aristocrat as kind of this really high quality, albeit maturing poker machine business, and
mm,
then this
mm,
video game business that, while fast growing, and it definitely has been, it's now contributing about 50% of the company's revenue, and it wasn't doing anything close to that a bunch of
mm, mm,
not that long ago. But I don't see that same level of quality in that business. Now, I note that they've, um, well, as we speak, Aristocrat are raising capital with a 1 for 20.56 share offering at 40, at a price just over $41, which is lower than the current market price. And
mm,
the idea is to use those proceeds to acquire the London-based company Playtech.
mm,
Now, what Playtech does is develop platforms and content for the gambling industry, and specifically the market that's known as RMG, or real money gambling, or real money gaming. So that's kind of, and I found that an interesting move because, as we've been talking about, that digital gaming, obviously big market, but it's a hard one. And now
yeah,
they're acquiring a company that does creates online platform for gambling. It's kind of
mm,
moving
mm,
back to increasing its focus back on the gaming. And even in that digital business, half of I think of the bookings, which is the amount of money they kind of bring in before they have to pay out certain figures, half of the digital business's bookings is coming from the social casino element. So that kind of leads to me that maybe Aristocrat is deciding more and more to focus. This Playtech acquisition could just be completely opportunistic. They saw the opportunity and said, "Let's do it." but it could also be Aristocrat saying, hey, we've had some success with these, non-gambling games, but we're not necessarily getting the traction that we were hoping. So let's move back to our bread and butter, which is gambling. And hey, here's this business Playtech that will actually allow us to get into the real money online gambling business,
Which you
which
have
is
to assume is
itself
massive,
a
right?
big market.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I think Aristocrat calculated about a $70 billion market opportunity.
That's big.
So it's a big deal, and Playtech has a lot of good customers in that industry, particularly in Europe, where online gaming is a lot more legal than what it is definitely in Australia and even in America. So that gives it a bit of a foothold, or a bit of exposure to that market opportunity. So that's an interesting move from a number of different fronts.
I like it, mate. I like it. There's so
Especially,
many bits and pieces going on here too. When you think about, we talk about optionality a lot as investors. I guess there's a reasonably narrow levels of optionality. But as you say, on one hand, you've got the physical gambling. The very other end of Aristocrat's business is this completely gambling unrelated video game business, which frankly could be great. This real money gambling feels like it's somewhere kind of real money gaming, somewhere in between those two. So it makes some sense to kind of build that out, I guess, and that's a nice way to think about going on with the business. And as you say, there's also some similarity across the entire business, right? While they have those 50,000 gaming machines in casinos right around the country, RSL clubs here in Australia, I think New South Wales has something like 10% of the world's gambling machines. Pokies just in New South Wales, where we are, it's a very interesting business in the sense that despite that, it's still kind of hit driven, right? You mentioned movies and videos and music before. Um, for my sins, I've played Queen of the Nile once or twice over my many years as an adult. I see those games. I don't remember the last time I did play one, but I see they're still around in my local pub. I think there's a Queen of the Nile down the back. Might be one of those just pure video game machines now, rather than the actual press button ones. But anyway, if you get a hit, you do really, really well. The pub's got to want the machine, though. You've got to have something to give them because they've got a limited number of space, a limited number of machines. They're calculating their own return on investment per almost, linear meter, right? You put a certain number of games in, you want the punters to spend a lot of money in them. We'll get to the ethics in a second, but it is kind of hit driven, right? To what degree do we have to think of Aristocrat as something of a movie studio, as much as it is a purveyor of the same number of machines? We just simply assume the same volume goes through them every day.
yeah, that's actually not a bad way of looking at it, and therefore you can look at what's going on in these industries, like the big movie studios in the world. They're not spending a lot of money developing, brand new ideas. Hey, we're acquiring. There's this popular book or popular comic or things like this, and then we'll just build, multiple movies on the back of them. So, and that's kind of what I think Aristocrat has to do. Yes, they need to develop new games and things like that, but over time, the successful ones will be the ones that the clubs, the casinos, the pubs around the world are going for, because space is limited. Now, Aristocrat has a lot of them, and that's why they're so popular around the world. But as they try to introduce new games, even in that poker machine division, there's going to be an element of duds that just don't pan out. Now, that's that's you would hope that with Aristocrat's history, they'll be able to do it better than most, because they're the Disney of the poker machine world. They have the most hits.
And coming from you, mate, that's a big thing, because you're a Disney shareholder and a very passionate Disney fan.
I am a Disney shareholder.
That's no small compliment. That's no small compliment.
Yeah,
mate, let's move on to.
That's just the way.
Go.
Yeah, I was just gonna. That's the way I kind of look at it. And it goes for the same for the digital games as well. And that's what I was saying earlier. You're going to create games, for some, often for some inexplicable reason, will become really big hits. Others will become duds, and that's just the dance that you have to play.
I like it. Let's address the ethics very quickly, only in as much to say as we're not going to give a view on those ethics. We're going to let you, dear viewer, decide what you think is appropriate or not appropriate for your investing dollars. There are some viewers who haven't even bothered watching this video. Some who are watching this video and saying, well, I don't care what you say, I'm never going to invest in anyway. That's completely fine. We're completely supportive of that. That whatever ethical decision you want to make with your money is completely up to you. There are as many ethics as there are people on the planet. There's so many different ways of trying to skin this particular cat. If someone doesn't like gambling, completely get it. That's okay with us. Go and do what you need to do. We're not going to say, well, despite X, you should or shouldn't invest based on ethical concerns. We simply don't do that at the Motley Fool, at least not as our general services. One day, maybe we'll have an ethical service or something similar, but our job is to bring you an analysis of the opportunity investing-wise, whether or not we think there's a dollar to be made investing in these businesses, whether you choose to take up that advice on any company, including Aristocrat, completely up to you. So let's kind of deal with that one, get that elephant out of the room right now so we can move on with the investing case. And mate, let's separate this for a minute. I'm going to ask you to give me the bull case for investing in Aristocrat, convince me to buy the shares. Then I'm going to ask you to talk me out of buying the shares at the very end. Assuming you've kept me on the knife edge, I'm going to get you to push me one way or the other and tell me which you think is likely to be the case over the next, say, 5 or so years, whether you think it's going to be a market beater or potentially will lag the market. And again, as we always say, it's important, right? If you're not going to beat the market, you can simply buy a market-based ETF or index fund and do very well. So there's no point in owning, or very little point, occasionally maybe for income or something. There's very little point owning a company that can't beat the market. So that's what we're looking for at the Motley Fool in general. That's what we'll talk about in a minute. So let's get the first half of that out of the way, Andrew. Let's talk about the bull case. If you're going to say to me, Scott, you need to buy Aristocrat shares tomorrow morning, and here's why, or this will be out on Friday, so Monday morning, and here's why, what are you telling me, mate?
Okay, so I'm going to take the bull case from 2 different angles. Firstly, the digital business, enormous market opportunity, really fast growing. So that is, I think, largely what the market has been kind of laying its hat on. I do like the Playtech acquisition. I do think that helps, add an extra bit of quality into the business and introduce it into a new market. And that market itself, I would expect to grow at a decent clip over the years ahead. Now, as for its digital gaming business, when you look at its latest results, it's not going to be pretty. And that's because we've been in a pandemic. And when you're in a pandemic, there's less people going to casinos and pubs. But Vegas is open like it's, nothing's ever happened. So is the rest of the world's opening up as well. The years ahead for the Aristocrat poker machine business, which is a really high quality business, is going to be much better than what we've seen over the last year or so. So it's going to benefit from the reopening, whilst at the same time, its digital business should keep growing. And that would be my bull case.
That's a pretty nice 1-2 punch, mate. You get the benefit of both, as you say. It almost strikes me that the physical machines are almost the cash cow business now, and the digital businesses, I'll call them, in everywhere from real money gaming through to those strategic role playing games. I wasn't even aware. I've got to say, Aristocrat was doing that stuff. That feels like kind of the not so much the lotto ticket. The odds are probably better than that, but it sounds like that might be where any massive upside is going to come. So let's okay. I hear all that. Now, talk me out of it. You've convinced me to buy. Now convince me the other way, mate. Give me the bear case. Why would I not buy, or why would I sell my shares in Aristocrat if I was watching right now?
Okay, so the bear case is that the gaming business is a difficult hit-driven business, like we've been talking about. There's no guarantee that its games remain popular or that its new games become popular. And that could be a lot of money invested into development, but also acquisitions that doesn't quite generate the return that people, especially the market, is expecting. Now, as a whole, this is a gambling business, so regulations is a big thing. We've seen in Australia a lot of recent news regarding Crown and the Star, the 2 big casinos. Now, Aristocrat's not a casino. They have products that go in the casinos, but it's a gambling business, and therefore there will always be that regulatory risk. Now, I will put a doomsday scenario out there. We've talked about how for social casino games, you can pay money, you can spend money, you can gamble your own money by buying credits. But if you win, you get nothing back. It just sits there as free money credits. Now, let's just say that a regulator decided that this, that is just not right. We're still seeing problem gambling, and, that people are gambling. We should treat these social casino games like we do a regular casino. Now, that could lead to around 50% of all the revenue that the digital business is currently generating disappear.
Yeah.
Now, that's a doomsday scenario, but it can happen. We've seen gambling markets in the past be really popular and then vanish as soon as on a regulator's pen. So then you put those together and you currently have a company that's trading at around 40 times pre-COVID earnings per share. So, like I said, it's been hit hard, obviously, in the last couple of years. But before, like, you know, when the times were arguably great, its share price is currently around 40 times the earnings per share for that figure. So it needs to keep growing, and needs to keep growing at a decent rate for, you know, a fair amount of time to justify that. So when you put those risks together and that valuation, that would be my bear case.
Okay, so we're seeing a good quality core business. We're seeing a promising growth business. We're also, though, running the risk of a regulator saying thanks but no thanks. And I got to say, those kind of pretend the social casino games, when you actually put money in and win nothing, that if humans were rational, that would tell us all not to bother. That would be the very case in point to say, why would I gamble the poker shares? That's a stupid idea. Look, I'm losing money, and yet they're not, which is exactly why they have, to some degree, got us over a barrel when it comes to our human psychology. That's a whole different conversation. But great growth businesses, great core business, but we're paying a pretty penny, and the regulator might simply take some of it away, or various regulators across the world. Okay, I'm on that knife edge, mate. I'm not sure which way you're going to go. I literally don't know which way you're going to go, so that's even more fun. What do you reckon? If you took a market today, and hey, we're in the business of probabilities, right? This is investing. This is also, to some degree, in different senses, also gambling. So let's put our dollar on the line. What else are you giving me? You think it's likely to be an outperformer? Is it going to beat the market over the next 5 years, or do you think it's going to fall behind?
So kind of like our previous video that we did about CSL, I see, you know, Aristocrat's this, yeah, it's a good business. It's a good business. But when I look at it, when I think about it, I struggle to come up with a view that's more optimistic than what the market already offers it. Now, I've been wrong in the past on Aristocrat, so I'll put that right out there.
Yep.
But at the moment, I'm definitely not a buyer. I'm not confident that it's going to outperform at current prices. Although I'm probably a little bit more bullish after the Playtech acquisition than what I was previously, but I'm still not there yet where I can come up with that view that's going to allow me to be confident that it's going to be a market beater over time.
There you go, fools. Quality business, but a price that's just a little bit too high to give Andrew enough confidence it's going to beat the market. In other words, there are better ideas out there. Arguably, better ways to spend your time than betting money on the pokies too. But I'll leave that one up to you and your discretion. If you're just gamble responsibly, as the good people say, make sure you do the right thing. And of course, invest responsibly. We do have plenty of investing services that help you invest responsibly at the Motley Fool. We also are all over the socials. If you're watching this on YouTube, you have to be. This is the only place it is. Please make sure you do hit the like button and to subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell just under this video so you make sure you get all of our great content, including the next time Andrew is here with me on the channel. And of course, we have plenty of other ways you can be in touch with us. A couple of podcasts. The Good Oil with Scott Phillips is the newest one. And our most recent episode with Ausbiz founder and managing director Kylie Merritt has hit the podcast feed last Tuesday. Check that out, brand new. The Motley Fool Money podcast, of course, has an episode that's going live right now, right while you're watching this. So check out Motley Fool Money as well. Now, Andrew, you're on Twitter, aren't you?
Yeah, I am on Twitter, at Andrew Legget.
Nice and straightforward. At Andrew Legget. You can follow me at TMF Scott P. And you can get me on Twitter and Instagram with that handle at TMF Scott P. The Motley Fool AU is our handle for Twitter and for Instagram for the company. And if you're on Facebook, check out the Motley Fool Australia or Scott Phillips Money, or one word, just type that in, facebook.com/Scott Phillips Money or /the Motley Fool Australia. Thank you for watching, fools. We appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us, and we look forward to being back with you next week with a whole lot of new content, including our favorite investing books, our stock of the week, and of course, this Stocks in Focus series. Until next time, from Andrew, myself, and the whole Motley Fool team, Fool on.